Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. As you doubtless know, the most controversial document in America remains totally mysterious. It's only 4 pages long. It is classified. That means while many are talking about it, and they are, virtually nobody has actually read it. It's a memo. It's prepared by the House Intelligence Committee, and apparently it describes surveillance of American citizens in this country by our own intelligence and law enforcement agencies. Several Republicans who have seen the document say it exposes massive and terrifying abuses of our civil liberties, presumably committed for political gain. They say the memo shows how the Obama administration used the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act not to protect this country from foreign threats like terror, which is its purpose, but to spy on rival campaigns, the Trump campaign in particular, and to create a pretext for the current independent counsel investigation, the one that has mesmerized our political class and all but paralyzed our government. It's going on over a year. Even today, the president was responding to questions about it. Watch.
One more quick one. Do you believe Robert Mueller?
I only repeat for the purposes of making sure you understand.
One more quick one. Do you think Robert Mueller will be fair to you in this larger investigation?
We're going to find out.
Are you concerned about it?
Because here's what we'll say, and everybody says, no collusion. There's no collusion. Now they're saying, oh, well, did he fight back? If you fight back, you say obstruction. Sir, you fight back, John. You fight back. Oh, it's obstruction. So here's the thing. I hope so.
So how do you define collusion? And Maggie asked this earlier during the briefing to Sarah, but how do you...
You're going to define it for me, okay? But I can tell you, there's no collusion. I couldn't have cared less about Russians having to do with my campaign.
It's all we talk about in Washington, pretty much. So if it turns out that this whole investigation is a politically motivated sham, that'll be newsworthy. In the words of one sitting member of Congress, quote, when this memo comes out, people will go to jail. Now, those are strong words. Is the memo that damning? Honestly, we don't know. We have no idea. Like pretty much everyone else in Washington, we haven't read a single word of it. But we certainly take the idea seriously, and why wouldn't we? The most destabilizing thing any government can do is use law enforcement as a political weapon. That's when the police become the secret police, and suddenly you're no longer living in a free country. It happens all the time in other places. Our founders were worried about that happening here, and the rest of us ought to be worried too. A rogue FBI is a far bigger threat to you and your family than any buffoonish tweet from the Oval Office. It actually matters. It could wreck everything we've built here. So this is not a story we ought to ignore. The public deserves to know, needs to know what's in that memo. This is our government. We have a right to know if it's representing us or if it's lying to our faces. If there's corruption, expose that corruption. Transparency is the only antidote. Now, you'd think everyone would agree with that sentiment. Pretty commonplace. And by the way, when you think about it, what exactly is the counter-argument against that? Secrecy is good? People shouldn't know if their government is corrupt? More darkness and deception, please. Even in Washington, you can't say those things out loud, though many would like to, trust me. So instead, Democrats on the Hill and their many handmaidens in the media have a new argument. You're not allowed to know what's in that memo because Russia. Seriously, that is the case they are now making, as of yesterday. Senator Dianne Feinstein and Congressman Adam Schiff, Democrats both from the state of California, are warning that if you want to read that document, that memo, which, by the way, was prepared by the U.S. government for American lawmakers, you are somehow in league with the Vladimir Putin regime. Yesterday, those two sent a letter to the CEOs of Facebook and Twitter claiming that calls to release the memo are, quote, an ongoing attack by the Russian government through Kremlin-linked social media actors directly acting to intervene and influence our democratic process, end quote. Got that? Anyone asking for more transparency from this government, and that would include elected members of Congress and this show, among others, anyone who's doing that is participating in a foreign propaganda campaign that hurts America. In other words, they're traitors. The implication of Schiff and Feinstein's letter is that Twitter and Facebook ought to do something to help, by the way, quickly. Like, I don't know, censor the accounts of anyone who wants to see the memo. You'd think the media might have a big problem with all of this. For centuries, the American press has fought efforts by politicians and those in power to hide unflattering information about themselves. That was noble work. It's the reason that the press is mentioned in the First Amendment. But they're not doing that anymore. On television today, you heard famous anchors make the opposite case. They suggested that calls to release the memo are simply tactics by right-wing crazies and Vladimir Putin to undermine America because they're unpatriotic. And that's when you knew it was over, the long and worthy tradition of journalists as watchdogs, holding the powerful to account. Turns out the journalists have switched teams. They're with the powerful now. They'd like you to shut the hell up.
Okay, well, really quick addendum from the previous story we just covered. My friend Gordon, who is a freshman at UConn, just said, I wasn't able to get into the Shapiro event either. Everyone wanted to go. More conservatives on campus than people think. Thank you, Gordo. By the way, the Justice Department is asking to see a memo reportedly outlining serious wrongdoing at the FBI and Justice Department under President Obama. House Intel Chairman Devin Nunes is taking steps to declassify the memo summarizing the findings of his Russia investigation. Well, a letter from the Justice Department charges that it would be extraordinarily reckless tonight to release the memo without first giving the DOJ and FBI the opportunity to review it. Let's sort this all out with someone who's read the memo, Congressman Peter King of New York. I thought you were going to be here tonight with me, Congressman, who serves on the Intel Committee. Great to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Laura. How are you?
I'm great. So what is the Justice Department, the FBI? They're suddenly all squirrely about the release of this memo. What goes on?
Yeah, well, this memo, it's a 4-page memo put together by a very talented professional staff on the committee, reviewed by all the Republican members, made available to all the members of the committee, and voted out of the committee last week to be made available to all the members of the House. The findings in here are very, very significant, showing, I believe, either terrible mistakes or deliberate wrongdoing at high levels. And right now, the Justice Department, and what Devin Nunes plans on doing, because over 200 members of the House have looked at it, only about 10 Democrats, by the way, and there is a clamor by the public to see the memo. We're going to make sure there's nothing in there, any small item that may reveal a source or method, and that is pretty much finished. That'll be done. And then we're going to vote this week on releasing it. At that stage, if we get a majority vote, which we will, it will go to the President of the United States. He will decide if it can be made public or not. If he does, it will be made known to the public. This letter from the Justice Department, Laura, listen, I have great respect for the FBI. I generally have great respect for the Justice Department, but we have gotten almost no cooperation from them at all over the last several months. We had to go to court to get documents we were entitled to, long, hard fights to get basic documents which we have an absolute right to see. And now the Justice Department, if we gave them this memo, what they would do is it'd be passed out to all their friends in the media to tear it down before it even gets out there. Everything that's in that memo is from the Justice Department, information we found. There's no surprises there to them. They just want to be ready, I think, to attack it, and they want to attack it, make a preemptive attack on it. We're not going to let them. I understand. I've not spoken to Devin, but I've spoken to his staff people tonight, and he fully intends to go ahead. We're not going to show it to the Justice Department.
Congressman, knowing what you know now, you've read the memo, you've seen the evidence so far. Do you have faith, as of now, in the upcoming result of this investigation, knowing what you know now and what you've seen?
Yeah, well, I've sat through, I don't know, whether it's hundreds of hours. I mean, I've been in there for probably 20 witnesses who have come before our committee, and certainly all of the major ones have sat there for 7, 8, 9 hours. Again, all the big names you've heard about, I've been there for that. I have not heard one word yet indicating any collusion. Now, I don't know if Bob Mueller has anything else, but he's talking to many of the same people. So if they come out with any finding of collusion at all, based on what I've heard, then I would say that they're not doing the job. But on the other hand, I think right now, I believe the president's lawyers feel this is going in the right direction with all the improprieties that went on here, the fact that this investigation, I believe, should never, ever been started in the first place. I look upon it either intentionally or unintentionally as a political hit job. I mean, we're losing sight of the fact here that you have the leading law enforcement organization in the world investigating a presidential candidate based on the flimsiest of evidence. I wouldn't even call it evidence, on the flimsiest rumors. That's what this was based on, and that's a terrible precedent to set. You can do that to any candidate if you wanted to. And when you bring the FBI into a political campaign, it's wrong.
Well, I want to play for you a clip I watched this afternoon of a former RNC chief, Michael Steele. He was on MSNBC, and he was criticizing Congress and anyone in the media who would cast aspersions on the FBI here. Let's watch.
We have now set up a wholesale operation between the White House and Capitol Hill to sully the reputation of good men and women who work inside the FBI because of, as you noted, Howard, some emails. Yes, they're problematic, but let the appropriate authorities ferret that out. To do what they're doing, the end game they're playing right now, what they don't seem to understand, it could blow up in their face just as much as it could sully the FBI.
Response, Congressman.
We are talking about a handful of people at the top. The FBI is an outstanding organization, There are people at the top, though, who have not served the FBI well. And I would say the rank and file of the FBI appreciates what we're doing because they are concerned. I mean, I've heard from retired FBI people who are shocked about what's coming out. And to me, the emails and the text messages, that's all important. But that's really just an indication of this investigation from the start should never have been started. It's based on a false premise, and that's continued right through. And whether we're talking about the FBI, whether we're talking about John Brennan at the CIA and others, this to me has all been a concerted effort to go after Donald Trump. Listen, you have a lot of reasons you can disagree with Donald Trump, but to say that he was colluding with the enemy when there's no evidence there, to me, is shameful. And it's going on now. I think it's significant that now it's being leaked to the New York Times that they're talking about obstruction of justice, about events that happened 6 months after the campaign was over. The campaign where the Russians apparently colluded.
Yeah, we noticed the leaking right as things started turning really good for Trump on the economy and the shutdown. Then all the leaks came from the Mueller team. Congressman King, thank you so much. Great segment.